In the vast and ever-shifting planes of the multiverse, there are beings of unimaginable power, entities that shape the very fabric of reality, often for purposes that stretch the bounds of comprehension. Among these, Vorinclex, the voice of hunger, stands as one of the most ferocious and terrifying forces in existence. Known as a praetor of New Phyrexia, Vorinclex embodies the savage principles of survival of the fittest, where only the strongest prevail and the weak are prey. His presence alone sends chills down the spines of those who dare face him, and his ruthlessness leaves an indelible mark on all who cross his path. Vorinclex was born on the plain of Mirrodin, a place whose twisted landscape and metallic composition made it a fitting birthplace for a being like him. As a Phyrexian, Vorinclex's body is a grotesque fusion of organic and metal, a towering figure standing 12 feet tall with a raw pinkish-red complexion. His body is adorned with a ruff of patchy fur in hues ranging from dull browns to fiery reds, a visual testament to his primal nature. His arms are long and muscular, ending in massive curving talons, and 2 additional spindly arms extend from his chest, an unsettling sight for any unfortunate enough to witness his full form. His head, bone-colored and skull-like, is flanked by razor-sharp tusks, with broad, spined antlers rising like a crown of death above him. This terrifying visage is not just for show. Vorinclex's every movement exudes the raw power of a predator at the top of the food chain. In Phyrexia, Vorinclex ruled over the vicious swarm, a domain where the strong devoured the weak. His philosophy was simple. The only true measure of worth is strength. Sentience to him was a flaw, a weakness that only served to complicate the brutal simplicity of life. His existence was centered around a singular goal, to create a world where only the predators survived and all others were devoured. He reveled in the hunt, and his mind was an echo of the primal instincts that guided him in every decision. Though he possessed intelligence, Vorinclex preferred to follow his gut, relying on his raw strength and his unyielding hunger to solve problems. Unlike the other praetors, who often schemed and plotted against one another to increase their influence, Vorinclex was somewhat content in his role. He did not seek to overthrow others or challenge the leadership of New Phyrexia, at least not initially. In fact, he was one of the more stable praetors, compared to figures like Elesh Norn, who would eventually come to manipulate him for her own ends. Vorinclex's focus was narrow, the vicious swarm, and his unrelenting need to feed. He created new varieties of predators, releasing them into the tangle where they would feed on the land and creatures alike. He also completed many of the elves, turning them into savage, predatory beings like himself. But beyond his hunger, Vorinclex cared little for anything else. His indifference to the greater politics of Phyrexia made him a convenient tool for Elesh Norn, who was able to manipulate him when she seized control of New Phyrexia. Vorinclex's journey took a pivotal turn when he was sent to Kaldheim on Norn's orders. The plan was simple. Vorinclex was to infiltrate Kaldheim and sow chaos, but what followed was anything but simple. In the process of arriving on Kaldheim, Vorinclex's organic body was destroyed, leaving behind a husk of metal and bone. This transformation, however, was not the end for him. A curious stag sniffed at his corpse, and the Phyrexian praetor was able to rebuild himself, reforging his body in the process, but the task at hand was far from over. Vorinclex sought to manipulate the planeswalker Tybalt, who was already planning his own chaos on Kaldheim. Vorinclex infected Tybalt, forcing him to serve as a distraction in exchange for an antidote, much to Tybalt's sadistic delight. While on Kaldheim, Vorinclex stalked the woods of Bretagard, infecting both people and animals with his Phyrexian touch. His presence was felt in every corner of the plane as he sought to spread the influence of New Phyrexia. However, his actions did not go unnoticed. Kaya and the Omen Seekers soon confronted him, and the god Alrund revealed himself, disgusted by Vorinclex's actions. In a desperate attempt to escape, Vorinclex melted into a puddle of oil-suffused metal, fleeing the plane and leaving chaos in his wake. Yet his mission was not complete. He invaded the sanctum of the goddess Essica, mauling her to near death before taking a sample of her tyrite for his own purposes. This sample would later serve as the seed for Realmbreaker, the new Phyrexian invasion tree, a key element in the Phyrexian plot to dominate the multiverse. By the time of the events surrounding Phyrexia, All Will Be One, Vorinclex had shifted from a solitary apex predator to a more cooperative player in the schemes of New Phyrexia. He delegated much of his work to Glissa, the completed elf, who proved to be invaluable in the design of the Hunter Maze, a deadly arena where Vorinclex could indulge his instincts and test the strength of others. When planeswalkers launched an assault on New Phyrexia, Vorinclex was found sparring with Glissa in the Hunter Maze. Their fight was interrupted by Luca and Nissa, and in the chaos that followed, Vorinclex was severely wounded by Nissa. However, the Phyrexian power within him, coupled with his regenerative abilities, allowed him to survive the encounter. In the invasion of the multiverse, Vorinclex's copper host took part in a full-scale invasion of the multiverse. While Vorinclex himself stayed behind to supervise the efforts of Realmbreaker, his presence continued to loom large. During the invasion, Elspeth Tyrell, along with Koth, Chandra, and Ren, arrived to thwart the Phyrexian forces. In a moment of desperation, Elesh Norn threw one of Vorinclex's horns at Elspeth, hoping to hinder the angelic planeswalker's efforts. As the war between the forces of Phyrexia and the multiverse raged on, Vorinclex's role seemed secure, but as with all things in the ever-changing tide of battle, his fate remained uncertain. During the tumultuous events that saw the plane of Jalfir replaced by New Phyrexia, Vorinclex met a violent end at the hands of either Elspeth or Shella, an Ascari knight. His head was severed in a decisive strike, leaving many to believe that he had met his ultimate end. But for a creature as tenacious as Vorinclex, death is rarely the final answer. Given his ability to regenerate, as evidenced by his recovery after his initial journey to Kaldheim, it remains unclear whether the great Phyrexian predator is truly gone, or whether he will return once again to hunt the plains of the multiverse. Vorinclex's story is one of survival, primal instinct, and the relentless pursuit of power. His legacy, if not yet complete, continues to haunt the realms of the multiverse, a reminder that in the harshest corners of reality, the strongest survive and the weakest become prey.